So this is the Gemara. We're in Daf Yomi Avodah Zarah, Daf 59. So it says, so at the end of 58, it said, the Gemara notes that Rabbi Yochanan conforms to his standard line of reasoning, and it continues in 59, as Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadok, water that belongs to the public is not rendered prohibited. The Gemara infers that since water that belongs to the public is permitted, therefore in a case where Gentiles bow to water that is owned by an individual, it is rendered prohibited. The Gemara challenges, but Rabbi Yochanan could derive that even water owned by an individual is permitted, as the water is connected to the ground, and worshiping an object that is connected to the ground does not render it prohibited. So the Gemara explains, no, it is necessary to derive this halakha from the fact that water belongs to the public in a case where a wave raised the water and detached it from the ground. In this case, worshiping water owned by an individual would render it prohibited. So the Gemara challenges, nevertheless, water ultimately falls into the category of objects that were detached without human involvement, such as boulders of a mountain that dislodged on their own. So the Gemara in 46a cites a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and the sons of Rabbi Chia with regard to boulders that dislodged without human involvement and were then worshipped, and does not conclude who deems the boulders permitted and who deems them prohibited. May it be concluded from Rabbi Yochanan's statement that it is Rabbi Yochanan who says that boulders are prohibited. The Gemara replies, no, even if Rabbi Yochanan deems the boulders permitted, his ruling with regard to the water is necessary in a case where one struck the water with his hand and thereby detached it. So since it was detached due to human involvement, if the water was owned by an individual, it is prohibited. Rabbi Chia bar Abba happened to come to Bavli. He saw Jewish women who were impregnated by Gentiles who were in the process of converting and were circumcised but had not yet immersed in a ritual bath. He also saw wine that Gentiles diluted with water, and Jews then drank the wine. He also saw lupines that Gentiles were cooking and Jews were eating. And despite seeing all this, he did not say anything to them to correct their actions. So later he came before Rabbi Yochanan and told him what he had seen. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, go and declare about their children that they have the status of children born from an incestuous or idolatrous relationship, so they're mamzerim. And decree with regard to their wine that it is prohibited as an extension of the prohibition of wine used for libation. And with regard to their lupines, you should declare that they are forbidden due to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, as they are not people well versed in Torah, and any leniency would be misunderstood and applied too extensively. I think lupines are like beans or peas. Okay. So the Gemara explains that with regard to declaring about their children that they have the status of mamzerim, Rabbi Yochanan conforms to his standard line of reasoning concerning two halachot. The first is, as Rabbi Yochanan says, one is never deemed to be a convert until he has been circumcised and immersed. And since the father has not immersed, he is still considered a Gentile. And the second halacha is, as Rabbi Bar Chana says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, in the case of a Gentile or a Canaanite slave who engaged in intercourse with a Jewish woman, the offspring is a mamzer. The Gemara continues to explain Rabbi Yochanan's second instruction to Rabbi Chia bar Abba. In decree with regard to their wine that it is prohibited as an extension of the prohibition of wine used for libation. Although the Gentile did not touch the wine when he diluted it, it is prohibited due to the maxim, go, go, we say to a Nazarite, go around and go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. So lastly, Rabbi Yochanan instructed Rabbi Chia bar Abba to decree with regard to their lupines that they are forbidden due to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, as they are not people well versed in Torah. The Gemara asks, the reason that the lupines are deemed prohibited is because they are not people well versed in Torah, but in the case of people who are well versed in Torah, one can infer that the lupines are permitted. But doesn't Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak say that Rav says, anything that is eaten raw is not subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, even when cooked by them. So lupines are not eaten raw due to their bitterness and because they are subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan holds in accordance with the other version of Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak's statement, as Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says, that Rav says, anything that lacks importance and therefore does not appear on the table of kings in order to be eaten together with bread is not subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles. Lupines are not sufficiently important to be served on a table of kings, and therefore they are permitted even if cooked by Gentiles. So consequently, the reason for prohibiting the residents of Bavli from eating them is because they are not people well versed in Torah, but in the case of people well versed in Torah, the lupines are permitted. So the sages ask Rav Kahana, with regard to a Gentile, what is the halacha concerning the following question? May he bring grapes to the winepress without doing anything else to them? So Rav Kahana said to them, it is prohibited by rabbinic decree due to the maxim, go, we say to a Nazarite, go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. So Rav Yemar raised an objection to Rav Kahana from a Braita. With regard to a Gentile who brought grapes to the winepress in baskets and in small barrels, even though the grapes are squashed in the process, the new wine, that is the juice, sprays onto the grapes nevertheless. They are permitted. Rav Kahana said to Rav Yemar, are you saying that this is the halacha where the Gentile already brought the grapes? The Braita is discussing whether the grapes are prohibited after the fact, whereas I'm saying that one should not permit a Gentile to bring the grapes ad initio. So, the Gemara relates, there was a certain etrog that fell into a barrel of wine. A Gentile jumped up to take it out of the barrel, thereby unintentionally touching the wine. So Rav Ashi said to the people standing there, hold his hand still, so that he does not stir the wine and render it prohibited. Tip the barrel until the wine is drained into another vessel, and then he may take the etrog. So Rav Ashi says, in the case of this Gentile who intentionally poured a Jew's wine as a libation in order to render it prohibited, even though it is prohibited to sell it to another Gentile, as one may not derive benefit from it, nevertheless it is permitted for him to collect its monetary value from that Gentile. What is the reason for this? It is considered as though the Gentile burned the wine and destroyed it, and he is required to pay for the damage. So Rav Ashi says, from where do I say that this is the halacha? This halacha is derived as it is taught in Braita in the case of a Gentile who poured a Jew's wine as an idolatrous libation, but not before an object of idol worship. The wine is prohibited, but Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira deem it permitted due to two factors. One is that idol worshippers pour wine as an idolatrous libation only before an object of idol worship, and the other one is that the Jew says to the Gentile, it is not in your power to render my wine prohibited against my will. So Rav Ashi rules in accordance with the opinion of the first Tana. Nevertheless, he derives from the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira that one may collect compensation from the Gentile whose actions were against the will of the owner. So there was a certain barrel of wine from which the stopper had been removed, and the wine was spilling out. A Gentile came, jumped up, and placed his hand on the hold to prevent the wine from leaking. So Rav Papa said, any wine that is adjacent to the stopper is prohibited, as it was touched by the Gentile. But the other wine in the barrel is permitted. There are those who say that Rav Papa said the wine until the stopper, so in the upper portion of the barrel, is prohibited, but the other wine in the barrel below the stopper is permitted. So Rav Yemar says, Rav Papa's ruling is subject to a dispute between Tanaim, as the Mishnah teaches, Tevel Yom 2:7, in the case of a barrel that was pierced, whether on its top or on its bottom or on one of its sides, if one who immersed that day touched it, it is ritually impure. So Rabbi Yehuda says, if it was pierced on its top or on its bottom, it is impure. If it was pierced on one of its sides, the wine is pure, whether it was touched from here or from there, that is, from the other side. Only the wine that he touched is rendered impure. According to the first version of Rav Papa's statement, he holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. As Rav Papa says, in a case where a Gentile is pouring the wine from the barrel and a Jew is holding the beaker into which it is poured, the wine is prohibited. I started reading into Daf 60, so I'll stop right there.